Do you ever feel like your hard work is invisible? Like the effort you pour into every task, the quiet dedication when no one is watching, simply doesn't matter? That the system, the people in power, see only what they want to see, often overlooking the quiet strength right in front of them? This is the story of Jasmine, a woman who believed in the simple power of doing her job well, only to find that sometimes the greatest battles are fought not in the open, but in the hidden corners of data. In the silent language of log files, Jasmine was 33, an analyst in Cologne, a city that hummed with commerce and history. Her office was modern, all glass and steel, overlooking the Rhine, but her corner felt small, personal. She was the one who crunched the numbers, built the models, found the trends that others missed. Her colleagues were friendly enough, but busy, caught in their own currents. Her boss, Marcus, was a man who wore sharp suits and a sharper smile, a man who excelled at presentations and networking, less so at the detailed, demanding work his department required. Jasmine didn't mind. She liked the data. It was clean, logical, honest. Unlike people, data didn't lie. She would arrive early, the office still quiet, the only sounds the hum of servers and her own keyboard. She stayed late sometimes too, refining a report, double-checking a formula. Her reports were thorough, accurate, and delivered on time, sometimes even early. She wasn't flashy, she didn't demand attention, she just worked. She believed that the quality of her work would, in itself, be her advocate. It was a quiet, deeply held principle. She saw her role as a vital cog, small maybe, but essential to the smooth running of the machine. She wasn't ambitious in the cutthroat sense. She simply wanted her contribution to be recognized and valued for what it was: reliable, insightful analysis that helped the company make better decisions. She didn't need fanfare, just fair acknowledgement. She thought of her work as a form of communication, a dialogue with the numbers, translating their story into something the business could understand and act upon. She trusted this process, this silent contract between effort and outcome. She had navigated challenges before: complex datasets, tight deadlines, software glitches, but she had always found a way through, using patience and her sharp intellect. Those challenges felt like puzzles to be solved, intellectual contests where her skills were her tools. This was different. This challenge wouldn't come from the data itself, but from the messy, unpredictable world of human ego and insecurity. She had built her career on logic and proof, on the idea that facts were immutable. The coming storm would test that belief to its core. The storm gathered slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Whispers in the hallway about project delays, a tightening in the atmosphere during team meetings. Marcus, usually so smooth, seemed more agitated, his smile a little too fixed, his eyes darting quickly around the room. Deadlines for key projects were slipping, projects that fell under his direct responsibility. Jasmine knew her part was done. Delivered weeks ago, the data models she provided accurate and robust. She had even flagged potential issues months prior, buried in the annex of a report, a small footnote about dependencies and external factors that could cause delays if not managed proactively. It seemed those footnotes had been ignored. Marcus glossed over the delays in meetings, attributing them to unforeseen external complexities or resource allocation challenges. Jasmine sat quietly, her stomach tightening slightly, recognizing the familiar corporate euphemisms for mismanagement. She felt a sense of unease, a subtle shift in the office environment she couldn't quite articulate. It was like the air was getting thinner, harder to breathe, laden with unspoken stress. She noticed Marcus spending more time behind his closed door, his voice occasionally raised on phone calls. The easy camaraderie that had existed, or seemed to exist, began to fray. People were quieter, more guarded. Performance review season approached, a time that was usually straightforward for Jasmine. Her metrics were consistently strong: accuracy rates, turnaround times, the positive feedback she occasionally received indirectly from other departments who used her analysis. She expected a solid review, a confirmation of her steady, reliable performance, maybe even a small acknowledgement of her proactive warnings. She certainly didn't anticipate what was coming. The email requesting her presence for the performance review meeting arrived like any other calendar notification, easily overlooked amidst the daily flow of corporate communication. She confirmed the time, prepared a brief summary of her recent projects and achievements, highlighting key contributions and the impact of her work. She felt a quiet confidence, grounded in the tangible results she had delivered. She was ready to discuss her performance, to talk about her goals for the next year, to continue her path of steady, valuable contribution. The meeting with Marcus began congenially enough. Small talk about the weather, a perfunctory question about her weekend. Then, Marcus opened the performance review document on his screen, turning the monitor slightly towards her. His expression shifted, becoming serious, almost regretful. He started reading. The words felt alien, like they were describing someone else. Lack of proactive communication. Difficulty collaborating effectively with cross-functional teams. Failure to anticipate potential roadblocks. Analysis sometimes. Superficial, lacking depth. Jasmine listened, stunned, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Each phrase was a carefully placed stone in a wall being built between her and the reality she knew. Superficial analysis? She lived and breathed the data, diving deeper than anyone else. Failure to anticipate? She had literally written the warnings in her reports. Lack of proactive communication? She responded to every query promptly, attended every required meeting, provided updates as requested. It didn't make sense. She wanted to interrupt, to challenge each point, but her voice caught in her throat. She felt a wave of disbelief, then hurt, and finally, a creeping sense of betrayal. Marcus continued, his tone even, measured, almost sympathetic, which only made it worse. It was the tone of someone delivering unpleasant but necessary truths, not someone weaving a deliberate falsehood. He spoke about the need for growth, the importance of developing these areas for her future in the company. He presented it not as a failure, but as feedback for improvement, wrapping the harsh criticisms in the soft language of corporate development. Jasmine finally found her voice, quiet at first, then gaining strength. Marcus, I don't understand. My reports are always detailed. I flagged those potential issues months ago in the Q2 forecast annex. I collaborate constantly with Sarah in marketing and Tom in logistics. We had that long email chain about the supply chain data last week. She referenced specific examples, concrete instances that contradicted his points. Marcus waved a hand dismissively. Yes, Jasmine, those are isolated instances. We're looking at the overall pattern here. Perception matters. There have been concerns raised. He wouldn't name who raised them. He couldn't, because they didn't exist. He spoke of feedback received, a vague, untraceable source. Jasmine pushed back gently, trying to understand. But my performance metrics, my accuracy scores are consistently above 95%. My project delivery times are on track. Marcus leaned back, his mask of sympathy hardening slightly. Metrics aren't everything, Jasmine. We also evaluate qualitative factors. Team synergy, strategic foresight, leadership potential. These are areas where, frankly, you need significant development. He closed the document on his screen. The meeting was over. Jasmine walked out of the office feeling numb. The pristine glass walls felt suffocating. The buzzing city outside seemed distant. She clutched the printed copy of the review, the words blurring through unshed tears. It wasn't just a bad review, it felt like a fundamental rejection of her worth, a negation of her entire approach to work. She had poured herself into her job, believing in meritocracy, only to be met with this seemingly arbitrary, deeply unfair assessment. She spent the rest of the day in a haze, going through the motions, her usual focus shattered. She reread the review countless times, searching for a kernel of truth, a misunderstanding, anything that could explain it. But the more she read, the more the specific criticisms felt entirely fabricated, detached from her reality. The knot in her stomach twisted tighter. This wasn't just a difference of opinion. It felt malicious. She knew, deep down, that this review was a lie. But why? Why would Marcus do this? He had seemed okay. Demanding, yes, but she had always delivered. What purpose did it serve him to undermine her like this? It gnawed at her. She thought about the slipping deadlines, Marcus's stress, his evasiveness. A chilling possibility began to form in her mind. Was this connected to his own failures? Was he trying to create a narrative where problems in the department were due to her shortcomings, deflecting blame from himself? The thought was cold and calculating, and it felt disturbingly plausible given his sudden shift in demeanor and the utter falsity of the review. Doubt warred with her innate sense of fairness. Maybe she was overthinking it, maybe she did have blind spots, but the specific criticisms were so contrary to her actual performance, so clearly contradicted by objective data points she tracked daily. No, this wasn't a misunderstanding, this was deliberate. The hurt began to solidify into a quiet, burning resolve. Jasmine was an analyst. Her job was to find patterns, to uncover hidden truths in complex systems. She had always done it for the company. Now, she would do it for herself. She would apply her skills not just to market trends or financial forecasts, but to the microenvironment of her own professional life. She would treat Marcus's review not as a verdict, but as a data point in a new investigation. Where had this review come from? How was it generated? Where was it stored? What digital trail did it leave? She wouldn't confront him, not yet. Confrontation based on feeling would be easily dismissed. She needed proof, the kind of irrefutable evidence she was used to working with. She needed data that didn't lie. Her focus sharpened. The world outside her immediate goal faded. The office, the city, everything became background noise. Her mind, the finely tuned instrument she used for analysis, locked onto the problem. She accessed the company's internal network documentation, the employee performance review system protocols. She knew the system was cloud-based, with logs tracking access, edits, timestamps. It was standard procedure for compliance and auditing. Most people, she knew, just saw the interface, the forms to fill out, the documents to sign. They didn't think about the layers beneath, the digital infrastructure that recorded every action. But Jasmine did. This was her domain, the invisible architecture of the digital world. She started subtly, reviewing the system's user manual, paying close attention to the sections on data storage, access controls, and audit trails. She learned how reviews were finalized and stored, how previous versions were managed, if at all. She accessed the publicly available guidelines for performance reviews within the company, noting the dates they were last updated, the official procedures Marcus was supposed to follow. She cross-referenced these with the actual review she received. Were the procedures followed? Were the timelines correct? She worked late again, but this time not on company projects. She waited until the office was quiet, the cleaning crew the only other souls present. She brewed strong coffee and began navigating the internal systems with a quiet determination that bordered on stealth. It felt strange, using her skills this way, for personal vindication rather than corporate insight. But the principle was the same: find the data, analyze it, uncover the truth. She started with the review document itself. She downloaded the official version from the system. Using software tools she was intimately familiar with, she examined the file's metadata. Creation date, last modified date, author, last saved by. Standard properties, easily overlooked, but sometimes revealing. The metadata showed her Marcus was the author, as expected. But the modification dates were interesting. There were several modifications in the days leading up to her review meeting, more than seemed necessary for a standard document. She then accessed the company's document management system logs. This required navigating slightly more restricted access areas, using her standard credentials, but carefully selecting the right pathways. She looked specifically at the logs for the performance review folder, filtering by date and user, Marcus's user ID. The logs were verbose, recording every access, every edit, every file save and version change. She scrolled through thousands of entries, her eyes scanning for the relevant files. And there it was. A series of entries for her performance review document, showing multiple saves and version creations on dates after she had already delivered her final project reports. The reports that contradicted the review's claims of her being slow or inaccurate. The timestamps were critical. They showed Marcus was actively working on her review, making changes, right up until the day before their meeting. But that wasn't enough. Anyone might refine a review before delivering it. She needed to see what was changed. The system had a version history feature, though it wasn't prominently advertised or commonly used by managers. It was primarily there for compliance and recovery purposes. Jasmine accessed the version history for her review document. It was a goldmine. The system had automatically saved versions at various stages of editing. She opened the earliest saved version. It was starkly different from the one she received. It contained positive remarks, acknowledging her accuracy, her reliability, the timely delivery of her reports. There were notes suggesting areas for further development, but they were framed positively, focusing on growth opportunities like public speaking or leading a small project team, typical. Standard development goals for an analyst. The version history showed a clear progression. Subsequent versions became increasingly negative. Phrases were altered, positive achievements were removed, and the generic damning criticisms about proactive communication and strategic foresight were inserted. She saw the date and timestamps for each change. They corresponded precisely with the period when Marcus was under pressure regarding his own project delays. It was chillingly clear. He wasn't just giving her a bad review, he was systematically dismantling an initially positive assessment and replacing it with fabrications to create a scapegoat narrative. The log files confirmed it entirely. They showed Marcus accessing project databases and her own submitted reports immediately before making negative edits to her review. He was trying to retroactively justify his false claims by looking for tiny imperfections or twisting facts, and when he couldn't find enough, he simply invented the criticisms. He had used her own reports to find minor details he could warp into major flaws, or simply ignored them and wrote whatever suited his purpose. The timestamps told the story of his desperation and calculated deception. The logs detailed his activity minute by minute, accessing the Q2 report annex, where she had flagged the risks, opening her final project delivery report, then immediately switching to edit her performance review document, adding lines about failure to anticipate roadblocks and lack of depth. He was literally crafting the lie with her own work open in front of him. It was not just unfair, it was a digital forgery, a deliberate manipulation of records. This wasn't subjective feedback, this was provable falsehood, backed by an irrefutable digital audit trail. The data didn't lie. It screamed the truth of Marcus's deception. Jasmine felt a surge of righteous anger, cold and steady. This wasn't just about her review anymore. This was about integrity, about accountability, about the fundamental principle that truth should matter more than political maneuvering. She carefully documented everything. Screenshots of the version history showing the changes and timestamps. Exports of the system logs detailing Marcus's activity cross-referenced with the dates of his project failures. Copies of her original reports with the ignored warnings highlighted. She built a case, just like she would build a case for a new market strategy or a significant investment. It was meticulously organized, irrefutable, and damning. She knew she couldn't go back to Marcus. He was the problem. She needed someone else, someone with the authority to act on this kind of evidence. She thought about HR, but they often prioritized mediation or process over uncovering deliberate malfeasance at a management level. She needed someone higher up, someone who valued integrity and competence, someone who could see the implications of having a dishonest manager manipulating employee records. She identified Ms. Packard Schmidt, the chief operating officer. Ms. Schmidt had a reputation for being tough but fair, data-driven, and impatient with bureaucracy or inefficiency. She was known to value transparency and directness. She seemed like the right, perhaps only, person who would take this seriously. Getting a meeting with the COO wasn't easy. Jasmine went through the formal channels, submitting a request stating she had critical information regarding departmental performance metrics and review discrepancies that required her urgent attention. She kept it professional, factual, avoiding emotional language. The request was initially filtered through Ms. Schmidt's executive assistant, a formidable gatekeeper named Herr Bauer. Herr Bauer was polite but firm, asking for more details. Jasmine was careful, stating only that her findings involved inconsistencies in reporting and performance evaluations within the analysis department that had significant implications for operational integrity. She referenced her role as an analyst and her expertise in data systems as the basis for her findings. Her persistence, coupled with the intriguing, data-centric nature of her request and her known reputation as a reliable analyst, eventually piqued Ms. Schmidt's interest. A meeting was granted, brief, scheduled for late on a Friday afternoon, the kind of slot usually reserved for clearing minor issues before the weekend. Jasmine prepared meticulously. She didn't create a flashy presentation. She gathered her evidence, the printed copies of the different review versions, the key excerpts from the system logs, her original reports. She arranged them logically, ready to walk Ms. Schmidt through her findings step by step. She knew she had limited time and needed to be clear, concise, and utterly convincing. The meeting felt surreal. Ms. Schmidt's office was spacious, minimalist, with a panoramic view of the city. Ms. Schmidt herself was exactly as described, sharp, direct, her gaze intelligent and assessing. Herr Bauer was present, seated discreetly to the side, taking notes. Jasmine took a deep breath and began. She started not with the accusation, but with the data. She explained her process for reviewing her performance, how she noticed discrepancies, and how her analytical training led her to examine the underlying system data. She presented the different versions of her review, showing the original positive text and the later negative alterations. She pointed to the timestamps, explaining how they correlated with Marcus's project failures. She then presented the system logs, explaining what each entry represented, Marcus accessing files, editing the review, saving new versions. She showed how the log data corroborated the timeline of the review's manipulation. She spoke factually, calmly, presenting the information like any other analytical report, letting the data speak for itself. Ms. Schmidt listened intently, her initial polite interest hardening into focused attention. She asked sharp, relevant questions. Are you certain about the log interpretation? Could this be a system error? Have these logs been altered? Jasmine answered confidently, citing her expertise in system analysis and the inherent integrity of the audit trail system, which was designed specifically to prevent tampering. She explained the redundancy and security protocols of the logging system. Herr Bauer, initially skeptical, leaned forward, examining the documents, his expression shifting from neutral to concerned. The weight of the evidence was undeniable. It wasn't just one piece of data. It was multiple, independent sources. The document version history, the system access logs, the timeline of company projects, her own consistent performance record, all converging to tell the same story of deliberate deceit. Ms. Schmidt picked up the earliest version of the review, then the final one. The contrast was stark, damning. The sheer audacity of the manipulation, laid bare in black and white and confirmed by the digital trail, was shocking. She looked at Jasmine, her expression shifting from professional assessment to something akin to respect. She saw not just an employee complaining about a bad review, but a skilled analyst who had used her expertise to uncover serious misconduct. Thank you, Jasmine, Ms. Schmidt said, her voice low and serious. This is significant. She gathered the documents. I will need to investigate this further, of course. This is a very serious allegation, backed by very compelling evidence. She assured Jasmine that her concerns would be handled with the utmost discretion and seriousness. Jasmine left the office feeling a profound sense of relief, exhaustion, and a quiet triumph. She had done it. She had used her skills, her quiet dedication, to expose the truth. The system, designed to record activity for different purposes, had become an unexpected ally. The digital trail Marcus thoughtlessly left behind had become the weapon against him. The following days were tense. Jasmine returned to her work, maintaining her usual routine, but the office atmosphere felt different. Marcus was still there, oblivious, perhaps even feeling smug that his plan had worked. But Jasmine knew the clock was ticking. Ms. Schmidt moved quickly and discreetly. She didn't need to launch a full-scale public investigation. The evidence Jasmine provided was so clear and precise that it required only verification. Ms. Faiteni. Schmidt involved a minimal number of people from legal and IT, presenting them with the specific log entries and version histories Jasmine had identified. The findings were confirmed swiftly. The IT department verified the authenticity and integrity of the logs and version history. Legal reviewed the company's policies regarding performance reviews and employee conduct, confirming that Marcus's actions constituted a serious breach of trust and professional ethics, potentially even fraud, depending on how the review might be used in future decisions, e.g., denying a bonus, preventing promotion. The evidence was incontrovertible. Marcus was called into a meeting with Ms. Schmidt and a representative from legal. He was presented with the documentation, the log entries, the version history showing his edits. There was no room for denial, no plausible explanation for systematically altering a performance review in this manner, especially correlated with his own performance issues. His smooth facade crumbled. The man who had seemed so confident, so in control, was exposed not just as incompetent, but as fundamentally dishonest. His attempt to scapegoat Jasmine backfired spectacularly, not just resulting in a bad review for her, but in the termination of his own career. The word spread through the office quickly, a ripple effect of shock and hushed conversations. Marcus was gone, abruptly, without explanation offered to the wider team, but the rumors were potent and surprisingly accurate. Jasmine remained quiet, neither gloating nor seeking attention. Her vindication came not from office gossip, but from the quiet knowledge that the truth had prevailed. A few weeks later, Ms. Schmidt requested another meeting with Jasmine. This time, it was not a rushed, late-afternoon slot. It was scheduled properly, with an agenda. Ms. Schmidt reiterated her thanks for Jasmine's integrity and sharp analytical skills in uncovering the issue. She acknowledged the injustice Jasmine had suffered and formally nullified the fraudulent review from her record. More significantly, Ms. Schmidt spoke about the importance of having employees with Jasmine's level of critical thinking and ethical grounding. She didn't offer Jasmine a promotion immediately, but she spoke about creating a new role focused on data integrity and process analysis. A role where Jasmine's unique skills in navigating and interpreting system data would be invaluable, and where she would report directly to a senior manager who understood her value. It was a role with greater responsibility, visibility, and influence, a role born directly from her courage and skill in a moment of crisis. Jasmine, the quiet analyst who believed in the honesty of data, had not only saved her own career but had also highlighted a vulnerability in the system that needed addressing, becoming an unexpected catalyst for positive change within the company. Her work, once invisible, was now undeniably seen, and it spoke volumes. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that truth, even when buried deep in the mundane details of digital logs, has a power all its own. It tells us that integrity is not passive, it sometimes requires active defense. It tells us that the skills we hone in the quiet corners of our work, the dedication we pour into understanding complex systems, can be our greatest strength when facing injustice. Jasmine didn't need to be loud or politically savvy. She needed to be brilliant at what she did, and brave enough to use that brilliance to shine a light into the darkness. Her story is a reminder that being overlooked does not mean being insignificant. The quietest people often possess the most profound strengths. And the digital footprints we leave, both intentionally and unintentionally, tell stories that can either condemn or vindicate. If you've ever felt underestimated, if you've ever felt your quiet competence wasn't enough, remember Jasmine. Your skills have value beyond the task at hand. They are tools for navigating the world, for uncovering truth, and for building a foundation of integrity that cannot be shaken by lies. Don't let anyone tell you your meticulousness, your quiet persistence, your belief in facts isn't powerful. It is. Share this story if you believe in the power of truth. Comment below with a time your attention to detail made a difference. And the next time you feel invisible, remember that your quiet strength might just be the hidden key to unlocking something truly important. Remember that in a world full of noise, the data doesn't lie, and the truth is always waiting to be found by those brave enough to look.